our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
After he was baptized by John, Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. The gospel of our Savior.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. My message this morning will dance between Rector's report and sermon. You'll figure it out. I want to share with you that as I hear reports of snow in California in places where it doesn't usually fall, you don't know I'm a native Californian, so I'm watching that with some interest. I remembered my first time going skiing, which would have been in California at Mammoth Mountain. I remember getting all the gear on and being there with some very experienced skiers who showed me a few things and said, "Yeah, good enough," and got me on a chairlift and took me up a mountain. And I remember being young and full of energy and like physically active and fit and like I can do this, and just flying down the mountain behind these friends, exhilarated. I mean, there's nothing like that feeling of skiing. Any skiers here? There's nothing. Nothing. I didn't live in California.
Yes, the best.
Not skiing. You're more beach than mountains in California. You're part of California. So that feeling of exhilaration, I had never gone in my body at such speeds without a car around me. Right? It was exhilarating, the cold air on my face, the whole experience. Totally exhilarating until it was terrifying. Until at that great speed, I hit a little ice, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what happened and why that felt like that. Or a different skier came real close to me, and I didn't realize that they had the power to turn real quick. I thought they were going to take me out. It was really exhilarating until those moments when it got absolutely terrifying. Eventually, I fell a lot, and I learned that when you're down on the ground, you stop moving. And so the good thing about falling is you can take a little break. You can catch your breath. You can just slowly get yourself back together, get up, and rejoin the rest of the group. And eventually, I learned the nuances of skiing, how to move my body to control the equipment better, how to stop without falling, very important, how to control the direction and speed of what was going on so that the exhilaration was a little more controlled. Now, friends, this morning, I also remember the very, very first time I ever went through a pandemic. It was right here with all of you in this place. Remember it? Now, you might not have ever skied before, but you remember going through a pandemic, right? The logistics. Oh my gosh. Do you remember some of those early calls? Like, can we sing? Can we not sing? Nope, no singing for months. Can we give communion? Maybe. Can we give wine? Can we touch each other? We weren't meeting for a while, right? The exhilaration of coming back together for that first worship, and then I went home and I was terrified that I had given the whole congregation COVID. It was exhilarating to respond and to connect with each other. We needed each other, that freedom of being able to still be this community. And then there were moments that were absolutely terrifying. Back and forth. Terror, exhilaration, terror, exhilaration, Omicron, exhilaration, just going back and forth. The key task for the vestry and the clergy leaders of this congregation over the past 3 years has been to openly acknowledge those things that are terrifying to us, while continuing to lead calmly and faithfully and prayerfully throughout the whole experience. I cannot imagine being on this journey of learning in this pandemic experience without the companionship and leadership of our senior warden, Mark Rector. He began his term as senior warden right before the pandemic. Well done. Within like 6 weeks of becoming senior warden, we were facing ministry challenges that I did not tell you were in the job description. Let's put it that way. I did not tell you that you would be leading us through a pandemic. We didn't know. And your prayerfulness and the faithfulness of the entire vestry was such a gift, a stabilizing gift during all of it. There were 2 key vestry priorities that new vestry established at a retreat just before we shut things down for the pandemic. We were very focused on partnership and stability, creating a stable space for ministry through St. Andrews and partnering where we could. Boy, have those 2 priorities been, again and again, guiding lights for our vestry throughout all of this. The vestry was especially faithful as we faced the results of a housing boom. Again, we didn't know that was coming. We didn't know in 2021, when those housing prices skyrocketed in our part of the world, about 15 families, very faithful households in this congregation, it was their moment to sell their homes and to move to the next stage of their lives. And so that was, for me personally, I'll just say it was devastating. We were losing vestry leaders and the stewardship chair and friends and really hardy, faithful volunteers who would show up at everything and make things happen around here. A year ago, I was absolutely terrified about the future of our ministry because we lost those families. It was really hard. A year ago, in that moment of being a bit terrified, if I look back and admit it out loud, like I am, we were also averaging, 4 to 8 attendees at the 8 a.m. service in Union Chapel, which we had brought back. We were averaging between 20 and 30 at this 9 a.m. service in the parish house, and about 15 online at that service. And we were averaging about 6 or so at the 11:15 back in Union Chapel. And we were staffing a 10:30 service of morning prayer or Eucharist at St. Paul's because we'd begun that important partnership. We were spread too thin. No wonder I was terrified. We did it. I don't know how, looking back, but we were spread too thin, trying to go back to normal too quickly. And we were losing those families that had moved. It was terrifying. A year ago, though, we were also planning our first fun day school. We said we need to get our children back together. We think that families can do it outside now safely. We think families can bear that. And we were right. We have developed a nice, steady bunch of fun day schoolers, and that began last March. We were just planning that a year ago as a way to regroup. And we were also last year planning a confirmation class, which never did materialize. We just could not really get our young people back together. We were struggling. A year ago, we tried to bring back community dinners. We had a meeting, we talked about it, decided we'd try a soft launch with a potluck. If you were there, raise your hand at that potluck of brownies. We were a little off our potluck game, like, come on, people, potlucks are supposed to be like riding a bike. We should get right back on the bike and know what we're doing. We came back into potluck mode, and there was no protein. It was all sugar. Maybe we were trying to spoil ourselves. So Stan called Luke or the pizza place. Somehow pizza materialized. It was hilarious. We all were fed. Everything was fine. That was some learning for me, that even though we were trying to get back to normal, certain parts of that just weren't really ready or back in shape. A year ago, we were renegotiating our contract with Your Journey. Remember that? I know some of you, Bill, really remember that. And Teresa and many others. We were renegotiating how to use that space. We had been emptying out the Sunday school classrooms and youth rooms of furniture. We were figuring out what the reconstruction process would look like back there. We were understanding how that would impact our bottom line as a congregation and going for a fair rental agreement. We were pressed into these two spaces differently and negotiating that. It was a lot of change. A year ago, I think I was terrified because it was as though some of our basic building blocks of church community were lost. They weren't fitting together anymore. Our physical space was literally changing. People would walk in and see the new flooring and go, "Whoa! Oh my gosh, what happened?" They missed the carpet, the 18-year-old carpet. It was just changed. It's so shocking to us. Our physical space was changing. Our staffing and our operations were changing over the pandemic. We sent our beloved Hannah off to New Frontiers. She came back as a congregation member. But there were so many changes programmatically and in staff. We added a deacon, Amy. We added a priest, an associate, and then an associate rector, and Jennifer. There was a lot of change. We were rebuilding the congregation in different ways. In 20 and 21, we were really busy reacting. Everything would happen, and investors would say, "Oh, what do we have to do about that? What do we have to do about that?" It was still like putting out fires and reacting. In 2022, after losing those 15 households and trying to bring some things back too quickly or not quickly enough, we began doing what Christians have done for thousands of years, discernment. We began praying and discerning. Instead of things coming at us and trying to put out the fire, we stepped back a little bit and began really discerning. And this year I pray that now that we're in discernment mode, we can begin retooling and trying things that will better serve the ministries of this congregation and our neighbors and region. So let's go back to skiing just for a moment. I did not ski for many years because I went to grad school away from California and my skiing buddies, and it cost a lot of money, and we were having children, and so on. And so it was at least a 15-year hiatus between when I was skiing in my younger years and when I went back to it. You know what happened in that 15-year time period? The skis changed. I went to rent skis and I thought, what are those? They're not like the skis I used to have. They go, ooh, right, like this. And you use them differently and they respond more quickly to they're more agile than I am. And I had to figure all that out. I had skied for a long time and I had my kids and I was not a young teenager anymore. When I got back out on the slopes, there really was a lot of nuanced change that had to be made so that I didn't hurt myself with that exhilaration of going down the mountain. I had to remember how to stop and how to use new equipment to do so. This is the work ahead of us at St. Andrews. And as we do this work, I want to pause and name 4 key financial factors that are allowing us the time and space to discern and retool for ministry. There are 4 financial factors that I want every member of this congregation to give thanks to God for and know about with me. Number 1, an anonymous donor has covered the expenses of operating all of our worship at Union Chapel for 2023. When I came back from sabbatical, I was rested. I'd shaken off some of the heaviness of COVID and all the stress of that, and I was reconnected in my own prayer life. I was ready for ministry, and I came back to find out that the trustees of Union Chapel were doubling our rent, and that we were in a period that Jennifer and others were leading, very faithful period of time, doing some discernment about whether or not we could afford to renew that lease. We were in discernment mode. An anonymous donor helped us discern very quickly by making a gift to continue that ministry through that building for the coming year. And that's one of the financial factors that has meant we have more time, more space to discern and retool, thanks be to God. Since that time, David Riddle has established the Clara Jean Hughes Memorial Fund, which will also gather resources to continue support of Union Chapel for the years ahead, which is a wonderful way to remember someone who really served this congregation so faithfully for so many years. Little did we know how much, well, some of you knew, but I didn't really know exactly how much she was doing behind the scenes to make sure that the altar was ready for worship, the flowers appeared at the right time for holiday worship, that there was coffee ready after the 8 o'clock service. What a saint we have in Clara Jean Hughes. And so in her memory, we have a fund to continue use of Union Chapel. The second financial factor I want to name is the partnership we have with St. Paul's in Poplar Springs. They pay into our operating fund to help sustain our staffing model. So they are, in essence, helping to pay the salaries of our musicians and our clergy and a little bit of office admin help so that they can continue being a worshiping community with a lot of outreach and growth, and so can we. And together, that has allowed us to not only manage our operating budgets with better stewardship between both congregations, it has allowed us to maintain a staffing model that I really like and enjoy right there before us. And it has allowed us to try something totally new and different in welcoming an Afghan family into our community. That is something I'm not sure we could have done as separate congregations, that we can do when we pool our assets and offer them as gifts to God and our community. The third financial factor I want to mention is to mention the Your Journey Daycare. This is an essential part of our financial stability right now. I know it's totally different. I walked through here yesterday with Everett after we did a Costco run, and he looked inside the classrooms, and to see his face, like, where is everything? What happened? The wall is gone, right? To see the changes in that space is startling, yes. And yet, what we have done is we've allowed that space that many before us, saints before us, have funded this building and built this building, many saints in this room included, and now it is being utilized Monday through Friday to serve the needs of children and families right here in the area. It's busy here during the week now. There are families moving through the space, and financially it is supporting a good part of our operating budget. The fourth thing I want to notice is that our annual giving, our pledge campaign, came in more smoothly this year. It was as though people, I don't know, the exact details, but I just know at an earlier date in the calendar year, we had our pledges in. And to me, that says that there's some confidence that we are still going to be here for the next year and so forth. And I give thanks to God for your confidence in our ministry in making that annual gift of support to the congregation. That is a fourth and very important factor in our financial stability for ministry. I want to thank you all for the work you've done to bring about those 4 factors that are leading us into some financial stability, especially the vestry members, committee members that worked on aspects of those different pieces. And most of all, I want to thank God. Because every gift that you have shared with this congregation first came to you from God. And I'm grateful that God inspired you to share them with the congregation. I want to share with you that attendance at worship is on the upswing. We just finished the parochial report for 2022. And in 2022, we averaged 55 worshipers on Sunday mornings. Now that's about half of where we were before COVID, and yet it is steadily increasing since March of 2020. So while you may come in on a Sunday and think, oh, this doesn't feel like it did in 2017 or 2019 or the first week of March 2020, it is in a pattern of growth. And I give thanks to God for that. Our Sunday school program has a nice, steady cohort. And I'm seeing more young people, middle and high schoolers, coming together, especially when we gather for outreach opportunities in the community. We are well served by a committed team of 3 clergy, 3 employees, and a new intern, Rebecca. And do you know all their names? Let me just say it. I'm Dina. I'm the full-time employee. I'm the Rector. We have many full-time, part-time employees, including our associate rector, Jennifer, wave your hand just in case, who we hired within the past year. We have our deacon, Amy, who works about 10 hours a week. That's what our contract says. Anyway, we've got our intern, Rebecca, who's beginning right now for about a 6-month period, learning to become a deacon in the Episcopal Church. We've got acolytes back. They're not on staff, but I want to say how brave it is to have acolytes back. We haven't had acolytes since March of 2020. It's a big moment. And so those of you that are 8 and older who are interested in acolyting will be able to train with many experienced acolytes when we get everybody back up and running. And experienced acolytes will give you time to remember how to do it. Don't worry. We're also very faithfully led by Nikki and Aaron in our music department. Our choir is back, which is wonderful. When you say lift every voice and sing on the day of the Super Bowl, and then I heard it at the Super Bowl, I preferred what I heard at church. I mean, it was beautiful at the Super Bowl, and I know it had to be cut short. Sometimes that's the sermon for me. That is where I meet God, is in the music every Sunday. I'm so grateful to be able to sing together. We're also served well by Nancy Murphy, our parish administrator, makes sure our bulletins are ready, constant contact goes out, and a million other things happen behind the scenes. I also want to note that Aaron also helps us with our website and ropes in volunteers. Yes, please. Give a wave, Aaron, and ropes in volunteers who help with the technical aspects of running the live stream service. And I just heard this week that we have a new volunteer to give our existing volunteers a break when we need it, which I'm excited about. Today, we also, friends, are trying to have a potluck again. How's it gonna go? How's it gonna go, Lynn? Lynn's gone. She's making sure it's going fine. She's in the kitchen. I think we're gonna be okay today. I think we're gonna remember how to have a potluck. We're gonna get back on that life and be church community eating together again. So are we back to normal? What do you think? No. We were never normal in the first place. It's a trick question. Are we back to normal? Who's normal? What's normal? Everything that we thought was normal, it was just what we call normal. I don't know if we're normal. I do know we're back. I know we're back. I see the choir. I can sing the songs. I see acolytes. I can just scream with joy. I see all of you at a potluck table. We are back. We are planning a trip to Honduras this summer and Kentucky. We are back. God's people are back. Through the exhilarating moments of discovering and deepening, we might have felt like we were apart and away and distant. Here's the thing. God never went anywhere. God never left us. We might not have been together. God never left us. In the terrifying moments of severe COVID anxiety and isolation, God is with us. There is nothing, we know this from Romans chapter 8, there is nothing that can separate us from the loving presence of God. There is no pandemic. There is no change in building use. There is no loss of dear ones in this community. There are no staffing changes or service time changes or flooring changes. There are no temptations or fears or threats that can ever separate us from the loving presence of God. That's why we gather together, to remember that when we come together. And we are thankful. And we are acknowledging that everything we have is a gift from God. We are always being changed into something new. I don't know what it's going to be. I would like to know. There's my temptation, wanting to control the outcome, wanting to know what it will be. No. We don't know what God is changing us into, but we need Christian community more than ever as we change and grow and temper the chances and big changes of this earthly life with this embodied experience of God's presence right here with us, right here with us. We are so blessed to have one another, to have beautiful buildings in which we can gather and stay warm in the winter as we worship, so that we can gather and laugh and cry and share and learn and grow. We can have communion together. We can sing and dance and eat at a potluck. We can baptize and we can bury here through these buildings in this community. We are blessed by the leaders who have guided us through this perilous few years. Congregations are struggling on this return from COVID. We have been so blessed, Mark, by your leadership, Bill, by your leadership as junior warden, maintaining the ministries of this congregation, all those PPP paperwork things that Sherry and Teresa and Paige were handling, and Robert, our finance committee. We are so blessed to be doing this together with people with so many gifts. Our bishops and diocesan leaders have supported us, staff members and committee members, greeters, lectors, people who led Zoom and morning devotions, our whole community of faithful people who looked out for one another, who have prayed fervently for health and wholeness in the midst of so much upheaval. Those places that have exhilarated our spirits are here, right here, in one another, and in the bread and wine, that exhilarating freedom of following God through all of it. Sometimes going a little too fast, sometimes falling, which means we're stopped and we're safe, and can get back up and renegotiate. In all that we do, God has been with us. And friends, we are back. We may not be normal, we are still back regardless. Whether or not you call this normal, we are back. Only to find that God has been here all along, in front of us and behind us, over us, around us, absolutely all around us, leading us together to this place at St. Anthony's that we know to be our spiritual home.
Amen.
Amen. Let us stand and say together the nice